Hello everybody, it's Chibi, and today, as promised, I want to be bringing a manga and anime comparison review of the latest episode of Tokyo Ghoul. Now, you have 5 seconds to leave this comparison review if you do not want to find out what they skipped. And what they skipped, they're not going to cover back. They're not going to cover it. They're not going to cover it in the anime. I'm just going to say it right now. You have 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. They cut out the explanation of Kagune's in this episode. And no, they're not going back to it. They're not. The way the entire setup with the episode was, the way you saw, Gourmet pop up at the end of the episode, they skipped over, God, at least a good 8 chapters. The total of chapters that takes place in this episode is about roughly maybe 12 to 14 chapters. That's how many chapters was in this episode of Tokyo Ghoul. Now, if you don't understand how chapters work or adaptations, okay, and if you're watching Akame ga Kill, I'm about to enlighten you. Akame ga Kill's first chapter was completely adapted into the first episode of the anime. Now, I don't remember the exact page number, but if I remember correctly, it was about 80 pages long the first chapter was, and that was completely adapted, 80 pages into the first episode. The only thing they cut out was a little bit of the censors when you saw, the torture section of the first episode. That was the only thing that was cut out. I remember doing a comparison review on it. Now, that's 80 pages. Now, a standard shonen chapter, let's just take this into consideration, okay? Like, for instance, One Piece, Bleach, or Naruto. I don't know how many pages, Hunter x Hunter has, but I mean, it's standard about 19 to 20 pages on average. That's how a standard shonen weekly release is usually at, about 20 pages. And Tokyo Ghoul is about 20 pages each chapter, 19 to 20 pages each chapter. Now, factor in about probably 12 to 14 chapters, all 20 pages long, into one episode. And Akame ga Kill did 80 pages in one chapter. Now, think about that, okay? That's just 4 chapters in the first episode, technically, in length, of Akame ga Kill. Tokyo Ghoul put 14, or a little bit less, probably 12. Think about that for a second. Technically, the 14 chapters they put into the episode wasn't really there. They skipped over events, pretty much. They skipped over, multiple chapters of events in the episode. Now, let's get into the actual nitty-gritty details of what they really skipped over. The Kagune reveals. I mentioned this in my reviews. I think the dub arc, I mentioned it. The dub arc comparison review I did. I mentioned that they were skipping over RC levels. They were skipping over the machines, the investigators of how they had these machines inside of their buildings, and if a ghoul was to walk through it, they would instantly go off because their RC levels are so freaking high, like over 1,000 RC level. Well, in this episode, Juzo, the creepy little kid with the white hair or whatever, with the stitches all over his body that we found out was an investigator in the latest episode of the anime, apparently they skipped over an event, I'm guessing last episode, or technically this episode, you can count it either way, where you see this kid torturing this ghoul, and he dices up this ghoul into tiny pieces, okay? And at the moment, you have his partner, his investigator, go to the scene to where, they're investigating the body parts of the ghoul, and you have the investigator, like Juzo's, I'm guessing, partner, explain to him what Kagunes are. For instance, this is the first time I've ever seen Kagunes go into depth, like detail, where we're finding out exactly how they work. From what we find out in Chapter 53 of Tokyo Ghoul. And they definitely skipped over it because the events of the ending of this recent episode, Tokyo Ghoul, ends at Chapter 59. Yeah. So, they skip over probably about Chapter 52 to 56. They skip over that many chapters. They skip over, what's going on with Kaneki. I'll get into that in a moment, just a second. But, pretty much, they skip over the background and stories of the Kagunes and how there's different types of Kagunes. We know about there's different types of Kagunes because they have been mentioned, actually, in the anime. They have been mentioned, but they never went into detail. And let alone, they never actually ever mentioned RC levels at all. We find out in Chapter 53 that RC levels, for instance, they store in the back of a ghoul. For instance, like the people they eat, they get their RC levels from it, and that's what ghouls really need to use to survive. It's RC levels. And so when they consume prey or people, for instance, the RC levels store up in this pouch or organ on their back. And depending on where their, like, I'm guessing RC levels are stored on their back, it depends on what type of Kagune they use. And so it's like a rock, paper, scissors type of scheme. For instance, the lowest leveled Kagune on the back, like where the tailbone is, pretty much it's stronger against the one right above it, and vice versa. It's just like that. It's like a, you know, a pyramid. But then the top one is strong against the bottom one. That's pretty much how it works. It's like a pyramid style of what Kagunes are stronger against other Kagunes, and why certain investigators, for instance, Mado, was so keen on, like, hunting down different Quinque and trying to collect them, because certain Quinque are actually stronger against other types of ghouls, and some Quinque are, you know, weaker against certain types of ghouls. That's what we find out in Chapter 53. And the reason why I say I know for a fact they're not going to get back to this is, like I said, they've skipped over RC levels explanations way back in the past in the dub arc, and so, for fuck's sake, they're not going back to it. They're not going back to explain this. They're not. There's only 2 episodes left of the anime, and supposedly what I'm saying is the anime is going to end around Chapter 70. That's exactly what I'm being told. Right now, at the end of this episode, we're on Chapter 59. Now, getting on to the fact of the chapters after 53, we get into the entire bit. Chapter 54 begins with Kaneki in a bag. Now, you know the bag in the middle of the episode when you saw Jason and Ayato dragging Kaneki off in a bag? Pretty much that's where Chapter 54 is at. Now, here's the funny thing, okay? Now, we have 2 episodes left, and I've been told, like I said, that, you know, Kaneki getting his white hair is going to be, like, around Chapter 70, if I'm correct. And so, pretty much, they're gonna have to do about probably 10 pages next episode, okay? And that means they would have to, you know, skip over some content. And that's what makes me believe how they're going to have to skip over the Kagne's explanations. Because, I mean, that alone, the explanations for the Kagne's to make it, you know, conceivable for the audience could take up to 6 minutes in length. And so, they would really have to be rushing things if they were trying to fit that in. And that definitely, they won't fit that in. They're more interested on the action and progressing the story to a specific cliffhanger point. And so that's why I'm saying that. Now, in the episode Chapter 54, for instance, we see Kaneki wake up from his bag. Ayato is, you know, given the rundown of how it all works in Ogiri Tree. Tells him, like, there's different leaders and stuff like that. Now, this entire section of the manga, I'm inclined to believe that it could possibly be put into the upcoming episode of Tokyo Ghoul. I'm inclined to believe that, I am. But the reason why I don't believe it is that, like I said, there's 2 episodes left. Only 2 episodes left. And you can only fit in so much content in 2 episodes. Seriously, you can only fit in so much content in 2 episodes that make logical sense. And technically, I have to admit, Tokyo Ghoul has made logical sense with what it's done with its anime. I can't really deny the great factors of the anime and the entertainment value, even though after reading the manga, it definitely is a shallow and hollow version. Juzo, okay? Hopefully I'm saying his name right. The creepy, you know, Stitches kid, okay? His character development has been butchered. His character development is just shattered. It is completely shattered. I mean, we have not gotten to see this kid's sadistic side at all. For instance, they skipped over a couple chapters that completely focused on this kid. For instance, like, he completely, I guess, assaulted a police officer. He assaulted a police officer and, like, bit off this police officer's ear, like, a part of his ear, and spit it out and crushed it on the ground. It showed, like, his brutality as a character, and they definitely skipped over this. They definitely skipped over it because they're not going to go back to it. They're more focused on Kaneki and getting him to that white hair mode since they had to show it in the opening song. And so, the sad thing is that now that we're at this point, I haven't seen Tokyo Ghoul skip this much content at all. They're definitely skipping over major content now. There's one thing from skipping over slight character development at Hide or maybe RC levels, but now they're rushing. They're definitely rushing. Now, there's no way to deny that they are completely butchering the source material. What I can see going on now is it's going to be probably either a major cliffhanger and a cock tease pretty much, or it's going to be an anime original ending. That's what I see going on with the anime now. After reading these chapters up to chapter 59, it seems like it's going to be an anime original ending, because there's no way in fuck they could fit all these different events into 2 episodes. It's impossible. It is. It's impossible. So, I'm worried. I'm very, 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 very worried, because I do love Tokyo Ghoul, but it's pretty much past that point of no return. I'm just gonna be honest. Anime-only watchers that are currently watching this comparison review, you know how I feel about the anime, but I recommend reading the manga. You're definitely going to probably ruin all the surprises and, you know, I guess the events that are probably going to happen in the future, because from the build-up I am seeing in the manga that they skipped, I don't want to go into specific details of it in case it, you know, appears in next episode, but I don't know. Like I said, the events right now, the way they've, you know, mixed things around and they're changing things up and adding in the entire bit with, you know, Jason beating the shit out of Kaneki in his face in the episode, like that entire scene was not in the manga. In that scene in the cafe when Kaneki gets, you know, taken, okay? Jason does not beat the shit out of Kaneki. He does not grab him by the face and start slamming into tables and stuff. He doesn't do that. That is completely filler, and that was extra added scenes. And the funny thing is that actual scene where Kaneki gets his face beat in doesn't make any sense with the current events going on in the manga. For instance, with chapter 56, if I am correct, Kaneki actually, spoilers, I don't know if they'll show it, Kaneki becomes the subordinate of Jason, being forcefully turned into a subordinate, but I mean, Jason hasn't abused Kaneki, he hasn't beat the shit out of her or nothing, so, from what I've read, that scene was just completely filler. So, I'm upset. I'm pretty upset right now, because, I mean, this series is really good. Tokyo Ghoul is a really good series, and I'm enjoying reading the manga, and I'm enjoying watching anime, but I can't deny what they're doing to the anime. I can't. It saddens me. It saddens me I'm having to make a video like this and actually kind of put down the anime adaptation of Tokyo Ghoul. I enjoy the anime, I really do. It's sad to see how anime companies and studios do stuff like this to such great potential when it comes to anime. For instance, Tokyo Ghoul as an anime has so much potential, but for what they're doing to it, it makes me question why. I understand they try to do trailers and teasers for the manga, and they probably try to get people to jump on board to the manga, but it makes me question and wonder, why do you do this? Why do you skip over so many events? Like, they skipped over Rize's backstory on chapter 46.5. Rize's entire backstory with Banjo was just skipped. It didn't even happen in the anime, and they're not going back to it either, because it's too late past that event to go back to it. And so, hopefully the anime industry in the future learns that it's not good doing this type of shit. It's exactly what happened to Black Bullet, and it's showing here. It's exactly what happened to Mahoka. I guess there's not much more I can cover. I don't want to spoil the events in chapter 53 or 54 and up to 59. I recommend read the manga. Read the manga, everybody. That's all I can say. That's my advice for all of you. That's my 100% advice. At the very least, read to chapter 59 of the manga, and you'll probably be able to experience Tokyo Ghoul how it should be experienced. So, tell me your thoughts. I love all of you so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.